And so there I was, sitting in that crowded New York subway, watching this couple. They were arguing, but it wasn't like the movies, Luna. There were no perfect sentences, there was no dramatic music. It was just messy. And the student sitting next to me, who had been watching Friends on his iPad without subtitles, looked at them and whispered, "I don't understand a single word they are saying." That was the moment I realized we are teaching English all wrong.
Welcome back to Speak English with Luna. That is such a powerful image, Julian. Today we are exploring a frustrating mystery. Why do you understand every word in a Hollywood blockbuster but feel completely lost when a real person talks to you at a coffee shop? I'm Luna, and today we're diving into the psychology of cinematic English versus real-world chaos with Dr. Julian Thorne. Julian, you say movies are actually a trap for our ears. Why?
Exactly, Luna. In a movie, every line of dialogue is designed to be understood. It's sanitized. Real life? Real life has mumble, background noise, and broken thoughts. We are training our brains for a performance, not a conversation. Today, I want to show your listeners how to break that trap and finally connect with real humans.
That is a fascinating realization, Julian. Sanitized English. I love that term. It's like we are learning a language that doesn't actually exist in the wild. Let's give our listeners an immediate win. What is the biggest psychological difference between a movie character and a real person on the street?
It's all about intent, Luna. In a movie, every single word has a purpose. The actors enunciate, which means they speak very clearly because the director needs the audience to follow the plot. But in real life? In real life, people speak to express a feeling or a need, not to be clear. We use what I call verbal clutter. We say like, and every 3 seconds. For a student, that clutter is like static on a radio. It makes the actual message invisible.
I see. So our brains are looking for a perfect script, but we are receiving a messy signal. This is the perfect time for our first vocabulary checkpoint.
Great idea. Let's look at 3 words we just used. Enunciate, to pronounce words clearly. Clutter, a collection of things lying around in an untidy mess. Overwhelming, something that feels like too much for your brain to handle.
Those are perfect. Listeners, write those down. Now, Julian, how can we start filtering this clutter?
You have to stop listening for every word. If you try to translate every and you will fail. You have to listen for the anchors, the stressed nouns and verbs. Real people emphasize the important parts of a sentence without even knowing it. Movies don't teach you that because in movies, everything is emphasized.
That's a game changer. Before we move on, I want to hear from you, the listeners. Go to the comments right now and tell us, what is the name of one movie where you understood almost everything? Was it an animation, a romantic comedy? Let us know so we can analyze why it was so easy for you. Julian, you mentioned that movies are a performance, not a conversation. That hits home for so many of our listeners who feel like they are failing when they can't follow a simple chat at a pub or a busy office. Let's dive deeper into the psychology of this. Why is our brain so much more comfortable with a scripted character like Iron Man with a real-life barista?
It's a fascinating psychological phenomenon, Luna. To understand it, we have to look at how films are made. I remember back in 2012, I was working with a production crew in London. I was there as a dialect coach, but I spent most of my time observing the sound engineers. They spent hours, literally hours, Luna, removing what we call natural artifacts from the audio. They removed every tiny breath, every accidental click of the tongue, and every background hum. In the industry, we call this cleaning the track.
So they were literally sanitizing the language. They were making it lab clean for our ears.
Exactly. They were creating a sonic environment that simply doesn't exist in reality. Now, here's where the psychology gets tricky. When you spend hundreds of hours watching these films, your brain develops a pattern recognition system that is tuned to this perfect audio. You start to expect English to be delivered on a silver platter. You expect a certain rhythm, a certain clarity, and most importantly, you expect a logical flow. In a movie, when a character starts a sentence, they almost always finish it. There is a beginning, a middle, and an end to every thought.
And that's where the confidence crash happens, right? Because in real life, my neighbor starts a sentence about the weather, gets distracted by a passing dog, forgets his verb, and ends the sentence talking about his lunch. My brain is waiting for the movie ending to the sentence, but it never comes. It's like waiting for a beat to drop in a song that just stops.
Precisely. This creates a massive cognitive load. For our listeners, cognitive load is basically the amount of mental effort being used in your working memory. When you listen to a movie, the cognitive load is low because the audio is clean and the intent is clear. You're relaxed. But when you step into a real-life conversation, your cognitive load skyrockets. Your brain is working overtime to filter out the background noise, to interpret slang, and to guess the missing parts of broken sentences. It's like trying to run a race in a swimming pool. You're moving, but it's exhausting.
That makes so much sense. It explains why I feel tired after a 10-minute conversation with a native speaker, but I can watch a 2-hour movie without a problem. It's a mental workout. You also talk about something called the illusion of fluency. Can you explain that to our listeners who are reaching for that C1 level?
The illusion of fluency is a dangerous trap. It happens when you understand a movie or a podcast and you think, I am finally fluent. But you aren't actually fluent in the language, you're fluent in the format. You have learned how to understand scripted English. The problem is that scripted English uses specific vocabulary and a very predictable structure. Real English is what I call emergent English. It emerges in the moment, full of errors, self-corrections, and cultural nuances that no scriptwriter could ever capture perfectly.
Emergent English. I love that. It feels like a living thing, whereas a movie script is like a butterfly pinned to a board. Beautiful, but dead. So, Julian, how do we transition from being format fluent to being reality fluent? How do we handle the messiness without panicking?
We have to embrace the gist strategy. B1 and B2 learners often have what I call a perfectionist's ear. They want to catch every the, every at, and every on. But natives don't even hear those words. We swallow them. We use connected speech. For example, we don't say, I'm going to go to the store. We say, I'm going to go to the store.
I'm gonna go to the store. It sounds like one long, blurry word. It's almost intimidating.
It is, and your brain has to learn to see that blur as a single unit of meaning. Instead of looking for the individual bricks, you have to look at the shape of the wall. Psychologically, this requires a shift in attitude. You have to be okay with not understanding 30% of what is said. If you can understand the 70% that carries the meaning, the nouns and the verbs, you're winning. The anxiety comes from that 30%. We feel like that 30% contains the secret to the conversation, but usually it's just verbal clutter and filler.
This is such a relief to hear. I think many of us feel like we are cheating if we don't understand every syllable. But you're saying that not hearing everything is actually how native speakers listen. We're trying to be better than the natives, and it's making us fail. We are overanalyzing the static and missing the music.
Spot on, Luna. We are perfectionists in a messy world. I often tell my students, listen to the music, not just the lyrics. Real conversation has a melody. Even if you don't know every word, the tone, the speed, and the stress tell you the story. Movies have orchestral music in the background to tell you how to feel. In real life, the speech itself is the music. If you can learn to hear the emotional pitch of a native speaker, you'll understand them better than if you had a dictionary in your hand.
This is deep, Julian. I feel like we are peeling back the layers of a huge mystery. Listeners, this is the deep dive for a reason. Take a breath. This is where you move from being a student to being a communicator. You are moving from the laboratory to the jungle.
And remember, the goal isn't to be a perfect decoder. The goal is to be a connector. When you stop worrying about the script in your head, you finally start seeing the person in front of you. And that, Luna, is where real language happens. It's not about the words, it's about the connection.
Julian, we're moving into some seriously high-level territory now. For our C1 listeners, those who really want to master the finesse and the sophistication of the English language, what is the final barrier to truly getting real-world interaction?
It's the cacophony of human interaction, Luna. In a film, the subtext, that's the underlying meaning, is usually very clear because the director wants the audience to get it. But in real-world colloquial settings, people are often incredibly ambiguous. They use euphemisms, they hedge their statements to avoid being too direct, and they rely heavily on shared cultural references that you won't find in any textbook.
So it's not just about the sounds, it's about the social dance. You have to decipher the unsaid while your brain is already struggling with the said. That is a massive cognitive burden, isn't it?
Precisely. At a C1 level, you're not just translating, you're interpreting. You're looking for the nuance in a person's hesitation or the subtle shift in their tone. Movies are one-dimensional in that sense. They're designed for consumption. Real life is reciprocal. It requires you to be an active participant in the chaos. For example, when a native speaker says that's a bold choice in a movie, the music tells you if it's a compliment or an insult. In real life, you have to analyze their idiosyncrasies, their unique habits, and the context of the room to know if they are actually making fun of you.
I love that. It's about becoming a linguistic detective. Now, it's time for our golden word of the day. Julian, what have you got for us?
Today's golden word is subtext, subtext. It refers to the implicit meaning of a message, what's being said between the lines. In a movie, the subtext is often highlighted by the soundtrack. In real life, you have to find the subtext in the speaker's eyes, their posture, and their micro-expressions. If you master the subtext, you master the language.
Subtext, such a powerful concept. Now, listeners, here is your community challenge. This week, I want you to step away from the scripted world of Netflix. Go to a public place, a park, a busy cafe, or find a raw vlog on YouTube where someone is just talking naturally without a script. Do not try to understand every word. Instead, try to identify the emotional subtext. Are they frustrated? Are they genuinely happy? Are they being sarcastic? Post your observations in the comments using the hashtag #RealEnglishChallenge. Tell us one unscripted moment you noticed where the subtext was different from the words.
It's time for our high-energy word tour. We're going to recap 5 essential terms from today's episode to make sure they stick in your memory forever. Julian, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm born ready, Luna. Let's dive right in. First up is enunciate. This means to speak or pronounce words very clearly. Example, in a Hollywood movie, actors enunciate every single syllable so the audience doesn't miss a beat.
Perfect. Number 2 is clutter. These are the ums, ahs, and likes that fill real-life speech. Example, I tried to understand my boss, but there was just too much verbal clutter in his explanation.
Number 3, cognitive load. This is the mental effort required to process information. Example, listening to a fast podcast in English creates a heavy cognitive load for a new learner.
Number 4 is subtext. This is the hidden message between the lines. Example, she said she wasn't angry, but the subtext of her silence told a different story.
And finally, cacophony, a harsh, noisy mixture of sounds. Example, the cacophony of the airport made it impossible to hear the boarding announcement.
Boom! 5 powerful words for your English toolbox. Use one of these in a comment below. Julian, thank you so much for sharing your incredible wisdom with us today. You really helped us see that messy English isn't something to fear. It's actually the beautiful heartbeat of real communication.
My pleasure, Luna. Just remember, everyone, stop waiting for the perfect movie script to happen in your daily life. Real life is messy, unpredictable, and loud, but it's much more rewarding than any film.
I couldn't agree more. Listeners, if this episode gave you a new perspective, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. Share this with a friend who needs a confidence boost today. You are doing better than you think. Keep listening, keep connecting, and we will see you in the next episode. Stay inspired and keep speaking.